The people associated with this drug trafficking organization stood ready to defend their operation with extreme violence.
U.S. Attorney Theodore Hertzberg says investigators also found 30 firearms, including an illegally converted machine gun, a silencer, and bulletproof vests.
4:23 a.m. Chicago, Illinois. The city was asleep. Streetlights cast long shadows over empty intersections. The wind off Lake Michigan cut through the silence like a knife. Most of the city wouldn't wake for another 2 hours. But federal agents were already moving. Unmarked black SUVs rolled through the industrial district without headlights. Tactical vans positioned themselves at 17 different coordinates across the metro area. ICE agents checked their body armor in the darkness. FBI teams synchronized their watches. DEA operators triple-checked their weapons. This wasn't a drug raid. This was a declaration of war. At that exact moment, across 21 other American cities, the same choreography was unfolding. Los Angeles, Houston, Phoenix, New York, Atlanta. Thousands of federal agents were executing the largest coordinated strike against narcoterrorism in United States history. The operation had a code name, Iron Fortress. The target was surgical and terrifying. The Sinaloa Cartel and the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, two Mexican superorganizations that had transformed American cities into distribution nodes for industrial-scale poisoning. But this morning, the rules had changed. The order from Washington was explicit. Dismantle the network. Seize every asset. Arrest everyone. If you support the federal agents risking their lives to protect American communities from foreign drug cartels, hit like right now so more people see this story. Chicago wasn't just another city on the operation map. Intelligence developed over 19 months revealed something that shocked veteran investigators. Chicago wasn't a distribution point. It was the continental headquarters. The cartels had built a corporate empire on American soil. They owned warehouses registered under shell companies with names like Midwest Logistics Solutions and Great Lakes Distribution Group. They employed accountants with MBAs. They had logistics coordinators tracking shipments in real time. They operated armed security teams. They maintained payroll systems and employee benefits packages. They had built a parallel infrastructure. And they had help from the inside. The intelligence files contained names that made prosecutors physically sick. Border Patrol agent, county sheriffs, federal prosecutors, banking compliance officers, ICE deportation officers. People who had sworn oaths to defend the Constitution had sold their loyalty for cash. The betrayal wasn't isolated. It was systematic. As tactical teams approached the primary target, a massive warehouse complex on Chicago's south side, the breach commander gave the order over encrypted radio. All units. Green light. Execute now. The first battering ram struck the reinforced steel door at 4:28 a.m. Metal screamed. Hinges tore from concrete. The door collapsed inward with a deafening crash. Flashbang grenades detonated. Blinding white light. Concussive force. Agents poured through the opening. FBI, hands up. Get on the ground now. Inside, the warehouse looked completely legitimate. Forklifts sat idle near loading bays. Pallet jacks lined the walls. Shipping containers were stacked in organized rows. Clipboards hung on hooks. A break room had a microwave and a fresh pot of coffee. It looked like any trucking operation in America. But agents knew what to look for. Behind a false electrical panel disguised as a circuit breaker box, they found the first cache. 84 kilograms of pure fentanyl. The powder was pressed into counterfeit pharmaceutical pills, vacuum sealed in plastic bags, labeled with distribution codes. NYC 09, Boss 15, Mia 31. The pills were perfect replicas of legitimate prescriptions. Blue oxycodone tablets, white Xanax bars, yellow Percocets. Except these weren't medicine, they were execution devices. Each pill contained between 2 and 4 milligrams of fentanyl. Just 2 milligrams can stop a human heart in under 60 seconds. Medical examiners across the country had been documenting overdose victims with foam still in their mouths. This wasn't addiction treatment failure. This was chemical warfare. Agents pushed deeper into the complex. In a secondary building concealed behind a non-operational loading dock, they discovered the counting room. Cash covered 3 industrial tables. Vacuum sealers hummed on a workbench. Currency counters sat beside plastic bins filled with rubber-banded stacks of $20, $50, and $100 bills. The DEA Financial Crimes Unit would calculate the total hours later. $18.4 million in cash, just sitting in a Chicago warehouse. But that was only location 1. Across the city, 16 other simultaneous raids were revealing the true scope of the operation. At a trucking depot near O'Hare International Airport, agents discovered 387 kilograms of crystal methamphetamine hidden inside hollowed-out truck axles. The engineering was sophisticated. The axles functioned normally while carrying cargo. At a storage facility in suburban Cicero, they found an arsenal. AR-15 rifles with filed-off serial numbers. Glock pistols with extended magazines. 50 caliber sniper rifles still in factory cases. Fragmentation grenades. Body armor. Night vision equipment. These weren't street dealer weapons. These were military-grade munitions being shipped south to armed cartel enforcers. The same enforcers who controlled entire regions of Mexico through systematic terror. The cartels weren't just importing poison into America. They were exporting the tools to defend their empire. By 7 a.m., as the sun rose over Lake Michigan, the scale of the seizures was becoming clear. The Chicago operation alone had netted 461 kilograms of fentanyl, 387 kilograms of methamphetamine, $18.4 million in cash, 97 firearms, and 14 vehicles registered to front companies. But the arrests were even more devastating. 73 suspects were taken into custody in Chicago. Warehouse managers, truck drivers, armed guards, logistics coordinators who used encrypted apps to track shipments across state lines. And then there were the others. 4 Cook County Sheriff's deputies, a customs inspector from O'Hare, a federal probation officer, 3 Chicago Police Department officers assigned to narcotics enforcement. They were arrested in their homes before dawn. Their badges were worthless now. Comment exposed below if this level of corruption shocks you. It gets worse. The corruption wasn't limited to Chicago. Across the country, the arrests revealed institutional rot that went deeper than anyone had imagined. In El Paso, Texas, federal agents arrested Border Patrol agent Marco Salinas at 4:47 a.m. as he arrived for his shift at the International Bridge Crossing. Salinas had worked border enforcement for 11 years. He had commendations for drug interdictions. He had a spotless service record. He had also been waving cartel trucks through inspection for $18,000 per load. Surveillance footage recovered from his personal devices showed the system. Drivers would give hand signals, a scratch behind the ear, a tug on the collar. Simple gestures that told Salinas which vehicles to wave through without secondary inspection. He did it 53 times over 26 months. That's $954,000 in cartel bribes. In Phoenix, Arizona, a Maricopa County prosecutor named Jennifer Ortiz was arrested outside the courthouse where she had been prosecuting drug cases for 7 years. Investigators discovered she had been providing case files to cartel defense attorneys, witness identities, confidential informant names, surveillance schedules. People had died because of the information she sold. In Los Angeles, a senior IC deportation officer was arrested after investigators discovered he had been removing cartel operatives from deportation lists. High-value targets who should have been detained and removed simply disappeared from federal databases. The payment for each deletion, $9,500. The corruption was methodical. But what stunned investigators wasn't the individual acts of betrayal. It was how organized the recruitment had become. Internal cartel documents seized during the raids revealed a human resources operation. The cartels targeted officials with financial vulnerabilities, gambling debts, mortgage problems, child support arrears, medical bills. They would approach with a small gesture, an envelope with $3,000, a paid-off credit card, a consulting fee for minimal cooperation. Then the requests escalated, and once an official accepted the first payment, they were compromised forever. The cartels owned them. One anonymous tip to internal affairs would destroy their career, their pension, their freedom. So they kept cooperating, and the poison kept flowing into American communities. By noon on that first day of Operation Iron Fortress, the numbers were staggering. Across 22 cities, federal law enforcement had executed 891 search warrants. They had seized 8,818 pounds of fentanyl. That's not a misprint. 8,818 pounds. To understand that number, a lethal dose of fentanyl is 2 milligrams. 1 pound contains approximately 453,592 milligrams. The seized quantity could theoretically produce over 2 billion lethal doses. Enough to kill every person in the United States 6 times over. The methamphetamine seizures were equally massive. 13,700 pounds of crystal meth with an estimated street value of $390 million. Cash seizures totaled $142 million. Hidden in walls, buried in storage units, stuffed in safe deposit boxes rented under false identities. But the cryptocurrency wallets were perhaps most revealing. Agents recovered hardware wallets containing digital assets worth $87 million. The the cartels had modernized their money laundering. They were using Bitcoin, Ethereum, and privacy coins like Monero to move money internationally without traditional banking oversight. They were criminals. But they were sophisticated criminals operating like multinational corporations. Type money below if you want to see exactly how they laundered these funds in the next investigation. The human cost became clearer as investigators traced the evidence. The fentanyl seized in Chicago alone was connected to 23 overdose deaths in the previous 4 months. A college freshman in Boston, a construction foreman in Philadelphia, a mother of 3 in Nashville, a high school athlete in Detroit. They bought what they believed were legitimate prescription pills from dealers who sourced them from distributors who got them from the Chicago warehouse. They were dead within hours. Their families would never know the pills came from a super lab in Sinaloa, transported through a network of corrupted officials, and distributed by an organization that operated with corporate efficiency. The cartels didn't see them as human beings. They saw them as revenue streams. Each overdose death was acceptable shrinkage, a predictable loss in a business model built on volume and velocity. But the investigation revealed something that gave agents hope. Not everyone had been corrupted. The task force that planned Operation Iron Fortress worked in absolute secrecy for 19 months. They couldn't trust local police departments. They couldn't trust Border Patrol field offices. They couldn't even fully trust their own agencies. So they operated in the shadows. A core team of 53 investigators from multiple agencies worked out of a secure facility in Quantico, Virginia. They used sealed indictments. They communicated through military-grade encryption. They built cases without leaving digital footprints. When they finally briefed Senior Department of Justice leadership, the Attorney General personally authorized the operation. The message was unambiguous. The corruption would be purged. The cartels would be dismantled. America would not tolerate this occupation. The day after the raids, the Department of Justice held a press conference. The Attorney General stood at a podium flanked by the FBI Director, the DEA Administrator, and the ICE Director. Behind them were evidence tables covered with bricks of drugs, stacks of currency, and assault weapons. The Attorney General's statement was brief and direct. Yesterday, federal law enforcement executed the largest coordinated strike against narco-terrorist organizations in American history. We arrested over 500 individuals. We seized enough fentanyl to kill every American multiple times. We dismantled a criminal network that operated with impunity on our soil. But this operation also exposed a cancer within our institutions. Federal, state, and local officials who betrayed their oath and facilitated mass poisoning. To those officials, you will face the full measure of justice. You are not law enforcement. You are accomplices to murder. The Attorney General walked away without taking questions. The message required no elaboration. In federal detention centers nationwide, arrested suspects were being processed. Most were cartel operatives, warehouse supervisors, drivers, armed enforcers, logistics coordinators. They faced conspiracy charges, drug trafficking charges, money laundering charges. They were looking at decades in federal prison. But the corrupted officials faced something worse. Under federal law, a law enforcement officer who uses their position to facilitate drug trafficking can be charged under RICO statutes, the same statutes used against organized crime bosses. The penalties often exceed those for the traffickers themselves. Several arrested officials were already cooperating. Border Patrol agent Salinas from El Paso provided a detailed confession within 8 hours of arrest. He described the recruitment, how a man approached him at a convenience store near the bridge, how the man knew his name, his shift schedule, his financial struggles, how the first payment was only $1,500, presented as gratitude for being reasonable, how it escalated from there. Within 4 months, Salinas was earning $18,000 per cartel truck he waved through. He did it 53 times over 26 months. He bought a new Ford F-450, a fishing boat, a vacation timeshare in Mazatlan. His wife thought he was doing private security consulting. Now he was facing 58 years in federal prison. The ICE officer in Los Angeles provided similar testimony. She described a system of financial incentives combined with intimidation. After accepting the first payment, cartel operatives showed her photographs of her daughter's school. The message was clear: continue working for us, or your family suffers. She removed 197 names from deportation databases over 18 months. Some of those individuals were arrested in Operation Iron Fortress. Others had returned to Mexico and resumed cartel operations. The damage was incalculable. But the most shocking confession came from Phoenix prosecutor Jennifer Ortiz. She sat in an FBI interview room and described a shadow network operating inside the justice system itself. Judges who dismissed cases on procedural technicalities. Defense attorneys on cartel retainers. bail bondsmen who functioned as money launderers. She described a parallel system embedded within the legitimate one. When investigators asked why she did it, her answer was chilling. Because I didn't think anyone would ever find out. Comment justice if you believe corrupted officials should face maximum sentences for betraying their oath. The cartel infrastructure uncovered during Iron Fortress revealed sophistication beyond anything investigators had seen. The Chicago warehouses weren't standalone facilities. They were nodes in a continental supply chain network. Investigators mapping the operation discovered fentanyl precursor chemicals were manufactured in chemical plants in China and India. These chemicals, legal in raw form, were shipped to Mexican ports disguised as legitimate pharmaceutical or industrial supplies. Once in Mexico, the precursors went to superlabs in Sinaloa and Jalisco states. These weren't backyard operations. They were industrial facilities. Pharmaceutical-grade mixing equipment. Pill presses producing 75,000 tablets per hour. Chemists with advanced degrees. The finished pills were packaged and transported north. The routes varied. Some crossed through official ports of entry hidden in trucks carrying legitimate cargo. Others came through sophisticated tunnel systems. Some were smuggled by individual couriers. But most product came through the system. Corrupted border inspectors. Purchased way station operators. Bribed state troopers who ignored suspicious vehicles. Once inside the United States, drugs were routed to distribution hubs. Chicago was the largest, but others operated in Houston, Atlanta, Phoenix, and Los Angeles. From these hubs, product was broken into smaller quantities and distributed through regional networks. Street dealers bought from mid-level suppliers who bought from regional coordinators who sourced from the Chicago warehouse. It was a corporate supply chain. Efficient, redundant, ruthlessly profitable. Financial investigations revealed the cartels generated approximately $15 billion annually from United States drug sales. That money had to be moved back to Mexico and converted into usable assets. This is where money laundering became innovative. The cartels used trade-based laundering extensively. They purchased legitimate goods in America using drug proceeds. Electronics, vehicles, clothing, designer goods. These items were exported to Mexico and sold, converting dirty money into clean revenue. They also embraced cryptocurrency aggressively. Drug proceeds were converted to Bitcoin through peer-to-peer exchanges and Bitcoin ATMs in major cities. The cryptocurrency was transferred to wallets controlled by cartel financial officers in Mexico, then converted back to pesos or dollars through exchanges in countries with weak financial regulations. Some money was laundered through real estate. Cartel-connected buyers purchased properties in Miami, Los Angeles, Phoenix, and Houston. These properties were acquired through shell companies registered in states with minimal disclosure requirements. A luxury condo in Miami purchased for $1.8 million with drug money would be rented, generating legitimate income. After several years, it would be sold, and proceeds would be clean capital. The entire American economy was being infiltrated. Federal investigators estimated cartel organizations had purchased over $5.3 billion in United States real estate in the previous decade. That's not just organized crime. That's a national security threat. Share this video so more people understand the scale of what's happening in our communities. But Operation Iron Fortress didn't just target arrests and seizures. It focused on infrastructure destruction. Federal prosecutors filed civil forfeiture actions against 284 properties connected to cartel operations. Warehouses, residences, office buildings, storage facilities. These properties were seized under federal asset forfeiture laws. The cartels couldn't simply replace infrastructure overnight. Every warehouse seized was a logistics hub destroyed. Every vehicle confiscated was a distribution route severed. Every bank account frozen was a financial pipeline cut. The objective wasn't just arresting people. It was making continued operations economically unsustainable. And it was working. Intelligence reports in the weeks following Iron Fortress indicated chaos within cartel command structures. Shipments were delayed. Payments weren't being made on schedule. Mid-level managers were disappearing, either arrested or fleeing prosecution. The cartels were reeling, but investigators understood this was the opening engagement in a long war. The Sinaloa and CJNG cartels had operated for decades. They had survived military offensives in Mexico. They had survived leadership decapitation strikes. They had survived brutal internal wars. They would adapt and regroup. The question was whether American law enforcement could maintain operational pressure. 3 weeks after the raids, federal prosecutors began filing indictments across multiple jurisdictions: Chicago, Los Angeles, Houston, Phoenix, New York, Miami. Each district handled dozens of defendants to prevent any single court system from being overwhelmed. The charges were comprehensive: conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, money laundering, using firearms in furtherance of drug trafficking, corruption of public officials, RICO violations for those connected to organizational leadership. Many defendants faced mandatory life sentences, but corrupted officials faced additional charges that carried their own severe penalties. Honest services fraud, bribery of a public official, obstruction of justice, deprivation of rights under color of law. These charges were often stacked on top of trafficking charges. Border Patrol agent Salinas was facing a cumulative 81 years. The message was explicit: betray your oath, and you will die in prison. Hit like if you support maximum accountability for officials who betray public trust. As the legal process advanced, something unexpected began happening in affected communities. People started talking. Anonymous tips flooded FBI field offices nationwide. Citizens reported suspicious warehouse activity. They identified individuals they believed were connected to distribution networks. The fear that had kept communities silent for years was breaking. Residents in neighborhoods controlled by cartel distribution had lived in terror for years. They saw dealers on corners. They knew which houses were stash locations. They witnessed violence. But they said nothing, because speaking meant retaliation. Drive-by shootings, home invasions, family threats. But Iron Fortress changed the calculation. The arrests proved the cartels weren't invincible. The corruption prosecutions proved the system could function, at least enough to justify the risk of cooperation. Community organizations in Chicago, Los Angeles, and Phoenix began working directly with federal task forces. They organized neighborhood watch programs. They provided intelligence about abandoned properties used as stash houses. They were reclaiming their streets. It wasn't total victory. Cartels still operated. Dealers still sold product. Addicts still overdosed. But the infrastructure was damaged. And for the first time in years, communities felt they had leverage. 6 months after Operation Iron Fortress, the Department of Justice released a comprehensive impact assessment. The statistics were significant. 5,891 arrests across 22 cities. 8,818 pounds of fentanyl seized. 13,700 pounds of methamphetamine confiscated. $142 million in currency. $87 million in cryptocurrency. 921 firearms. Beyond raw numbers, the report detailed operational disruption. Intercepted cartel communications showed panic. Leadership was ordering operatives to abandon high-risk routes. They were pulling back from cities where federal pressure was most intense. Drug prices in some markets increased by 47% due to supply disruptions. That wasn't just economic data. That was evidence of impact. When supply contracts, prices rise. When prices rise, access decreases. When access decreases, fewer people die. It wasn't permanent, but it was measurable progress. The report also covered ongoing corruption investigations. 97 law enforcement and government officials were arrested in connection with Iron Fortress. Federal agents, state police, county sheriffs, customs officials, court administrators. Each arrest sent shockwaves through institutions. Internal affairs divisions conducted comprehensive personnel audits. Background investigations were repeated. Financial disclosures were scrutinized with unprecedented intensity. Institutional trust was damaged. But the purge was necessary. You don't fight corruption by ignoring it. You fight it by exposing it and excising it, regardless of how painful the process becomes. Comment accountability if you believe institutions must be held to the highest standards. The Pentagon took unprecedented action following Operation Iron Fortress. The Department of Defense formally designated the Sinaloa and CJNG cartels as foreign terrorist organizations under special executive authority. This wasn't symbolic designation. It meant military assets could be deployed against cartel operations. It meant intelligence agencies could target cartel communications with the same technology used against ISIS and Al-Qaeda. It meant the full capability of American military and intelligence infrastructure was now aimed at cartel networks. Within weeks, U.S. Cyber Command initiated operations targeting cartel digital infrastructure. Encrypted messaging servers were penetrated. Financial tracking systems were compromised. Communication networks were disrupted. The cartels were accustomed to fighting corrupt police and rival gangs. They weren't prepared to fight the National Security Agency. Satellite reconnaissance imagery from military assets showed cartel superlabs being abandoned in Sinaloa state. The operational security risk was too high. Some labs relocated to more remote mountainous areas. Others ceased operations entirely. The disruption was tangible. The Mexican government, under intense diplomatic and economic pressure from Washington, escalated operations against cartel strongholds. Joint task forces with United States military advisors conducted raids targeting cartel leadership. High-value targets were arrested and immediately extradited to face American justice. This wasn't voluntary cooperation. This was cooperation under ultimatum. The administration had made the position clear: assist in dismantling the cartels or face severe economic consequences. Mexico needed American trade more than it needed to protect narco-terrorists. So arrests accelerated. Within 9 months of Iron Fortress, 17 high-ranking cartel commanders were extradited to the United States. These weren't street-level enforcers. These were regional operational commanders, financial officers, logistics chiefs. They would face trial in United States federal courts where cartel intimidation couldn't reach jurors or witnesses. Convictions were virtually guaranteed. Type yes if you support trying cartel leadership in American courts. But Operation Iron Fortress also forced uncomfortable national self-examination. The demand for narcotics was coming from American communities. The firearms flowing south to arm cartel enforcers were American weapons. The money laundering was occurring through American financial institutions. This wasn't exclusively a Mexican problem. This was an American crisis with Mexican logistics support. Addiction treatment advocates argued that Iron Fortress, while operationally necessary, didn't address root causes. As long as millions of Americans struggled with substance use disorders, demand would persist. And where demand existed, suppliers would emerge. They weren't wrong. Federal prosecutors acknowledged enforcement alone couldn't resolve the crisis. A comprehensive strategy was required: treatment expansion, prevention programs, education initiatives. But they also argued a critical point: you can't treat people who are already dead. The fentanyl flooding American streets was killing first-time users before they realized they needed help. Someone buying a counterfeit pill at a party could be dead before morning. So enforcement had to come first. Disrupt supply, save lives, then expand treatment access. It was brutal calculus, but it reflected reality. The pharmaceutical industry faced scrutiny in Iron Fortress's aftermath. The reason cartel fentanyl was so deadly was user confusion. People thought they were purchasing legitimate pharmaceutical-grade medications. The counterfeit pills were visually indistinguishable from authentic prescriptions. That confusion was lethal. Federal regulators began requiring pharmaceutical manufacturers to incorporate advanced security features into prescription medications. Specialized markings, chemical coatings difficult to replicate, serialized tracking codes. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it might reduce deaths. Financial institutions also faced consequences. Banks that processed transactions later connected to cartel money laundering operations faced massive regulatory fines. Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and several regional institutions paid over $930 million in combined penalties for inadequate suspicious activity monitoring. The banks insisted they had compliance systems operational, but those systems had failed catastrophically. Federal regulators delivered an unambiguous message: if your institution facilitates cartel money laundering, even through negligence, you will pay severely. 1 year after Operation Iron Fortress, results were mixed but measurable. Overdose deaths from fentanyl declined 29% in cities where raids were concentrated. That represented thousands of lives saved. Cartel violence in Mexico actually increased as organizations fought internally over disrupted territories and diminished revenue streams. The power vacuum created by mass arrests triggered brutal succession wars. But that violence remained contained in Mexico. American communities experienced reductions in cartel-related homicides and violence. It was a cold strategic trade-off, but American policymakers accepted it. The financial impact on cartel operations was estimated at over $3.7 billion in lost revenue and seized assets in the first year alone. For organizations built entirely on profit maximization, that was existential damage. Subscribe now so you don't miss what happens next in this ongoing war. The legacy of Operation Iron Fortress won't be fully understood for years. But what's already clear is it represented a fundamental shift in American strategy toward narco-terrorism. For decades, drug war policy focused on street-level enforcement, arresting dealers, seizing small quantities, prosecuting users. It failed comprehensively. Iron Fortress targeted infrastructure, logistics networks, corruption, financial systems. It treated cartels not as criminal gangs, but as terrorist organizations and enemy combatants requiring military-grade response. And it achieved measurable impact. The fight continues. Cartels still operate, poison still flows, people still die. But the message was delivered. America will fight back with everything available. If you believe this fight is worth continuing, hit like now. Comment what you think should happen next. Share this so your community understands what's at stake. Subscribe so you see the next chapter in this war. This is only the beginning.